salty Gulf Coast to the rolling high plains, to the piney woods in the east. All across our dear Texas, folks need good food to eat. Our farmers and ranchers are heroes. They've always made Texas great. Texas agriculture matters. It's the heart of the Lone Star State. Oh, Texas got it all, y'all.
Well, howdy, neighbors. I'm your Texas Agriculture Commissioner, Sid Miller. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Texas Agriculture Matters right here on RFD-TV. Now today, we're going to talk about one of the most commonly used working animals in the world. Now, it's an offspring of a male donkey and a female horse, mules, and they've been inherently bred by man since ancient times. They go way back. Now, long ago, people realized the need for a hardier animal who ate less and lived longer than the average horse. Mules were found to be more resilient in some of the harshest of working environments, especially when you compare them to horses. You know, most folks don't realize it, but mules were instrumental in developing the infrastructure of the United States. That's right. Mules pulled wagons across the country. Their strength and endurance were utilized to build roads, railways, telephone lines, also while being used to farm and plow fields and harvest and carry crops. In fact, even George Washington instantly recognized the value of a mule in agriculture and later became one of the first Americans to routinely breed for mules. It was just a matter of time before mules were brought to the Lone Star State by the early settlers. Now, to Texas farmers, buying a mule was just as important as buying a car or truck is today. In no time at all, Texas quickly became the nation's leader in the overall number of mules. Many Texas mules were used in World War I, and in 1926, over 1 million mules were exported from Texas. During this time, the United States Army recognized the overall value of mules, with many of them serving as necessary tools by both the North and the South in the Civil War. While there has been a decline in the total number of mules since then, today they've become common on many Texas livestock farms. Now, let's join Tammy Arnder as she travels to Stephenville, Texas to visit with my longtime friend, Deborah Nowlin, whose lifetime of growing up on a ranch and riding horses led her to the love of mules. Friends, mules are just another way Texas agriculture matters.
Here, let's get this all straight. You're all crooked.
Deborah Nowlin Keith gets Sister, her mule, ready for a ride.
Such a good girl.
It's hard to tell who looks more forward to the day, Deborah or the donkey. Oh no, don't call a mule a donkey. And don't use the phrase stubborn as a mule.
They have such an incredible sense of self-preservation, and they're so logical. You show them the logic of what we need to do. You show them that you're a person of worth and can be trusted, and the sky's the limit. There is no end. But if you're not smarter than the mule, you're fixing to see stubborn as a mule. Trot.
Deborah grew up riding horses, but a trip to the feed store one day ended with someone saying, "You should buy a show mule."
Story kind of came up of, I got an old coon jumping mule. You ought to take him out there at the place and just, ride him. I mean, we take him once a year going out. And I went, okay. Never forget it. His name was Bog because he was either black or gray, depending on the season. Now, he was a coon jumping mule, little old bitty, knock-kneed, sway back, big-headed. The love of my life. Good boy.
After Bog came Salt, who still gets a prize spot at the barn and lots of loving, but the queen of the day became Ida Mae.
Ida Mae was the mule, and she was human. We did everything. She won everything. Name anything, against horses, she was an incredible animal. She was an incredible mule. Forever, people didn't even know who I was. They thought I was Ida Mae.
When Ida Mae passed in 2020, Deborah wasn't sure she would get back into the arena. It was such an emotional loss for her. But Sister, as in Ida Mae's sister, soothed the pain of loss and became Deborah's new best friend.
There is something that is very uniquely different about the relationship between you and your mule. I don't know that I can put it into words. I don't know that I can even explain it, other than they sense your every move, they sense your every mood. I can walk out the door, and depending on my mood, I can tell you what they sense. And if I say, we can do this, she's like, okay, I guess we can.
She's got a flair for the fancy, yet with a vintage vibe, all the time exuding an air of I am so comfortable in the skin I'm in.
Been this way my whole life. Love clothes, love repurposing clothes, you know, wear everything upside down, inside out, rip it up, put this piece on that piece. Just do a lot of fun stuff.
Whether it's home in Stephenville, Texas, or on the road at horse shows, she says it's not always about coming in first place, but giving others, including the judges in the competition ring, something to smile about.
Come on. And I had an old judge tell me that one time in a pleasure class. You know, he looked down and he said, now I'm going to be placing, and I'm going to be telling, and I'm going to be, you know, giving all the critique. But he said, in a pleasure class, you people ought to be a pleasure to watch. You know, and I'll never forget, he looked at me and my little mule and he said, ma'am, little lady, you're a pleasure to watch.
I'm Tammy Arender for Texas Agriculture Matters.
Well, thank you, Tammy. Hey, it's my pleasure to have with us today Tom Merritt joining us. Tom has been breeding mules for about 6 years here in Texas. Tom, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate you inviting me.
So I'm curious, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into breeding mules.
Well, back in 2006, I thought, well, I want to start riding mules, and so I started checking in, and I'd ask for information from people, and got some good advice, but I got some bad advice too. Yeah. Finally, I come across a man named Ben Tennyson, and Ben Tennyson, I probably wore out his ear on the phone talking to him about mules.
Yeah.
But he kind of lined me out, and that kind of got me started in mules. And then finally in '07, I bought a mule, and after I bought that mule, I would get it going pretty good, and then somebody'd buy it off of me. So I'd turn around and get another one.
Yeah.
And about that time, somebody would get it, I want to buy it. But my problem was I was having a hard time finding mules that I liked, that I wanted to put my saddle on.
Yeah.
So I said, dang it, I think I can just raise these suckers. And
There you go.
I started looking around for mares, and my wife has been in the horse business a lot longer than I have. She's got a better eye for good horse flesh. So she helped me kind of gather up the mares that I've got, well, just two at that time. And then another man named Ben Tennyson, since I didn't know anything about jacks, I started talking to him. Well, he turned me on to a guy named Nick Reed, in which I had rode enough of Texas Scooter's mules that I knew a little bit about them, and that's what he preferred, was Texas Scooter breeding. And at that time, he'd been dead long enough that he didn't have anything but grandsons. And so I ended up getting one a little more, get another jack out of Texas too, or a grandson.
So that's your foundation there,
right?
That jack.
Right.
Everything probably goes back to him.
Well,
one form or
I guess
another.
if you want to compare it to horse, it'd be kind of like a dock bar.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That's good to know. You know, now folks see something with long ears, they just think it's a mule, but they get donkeys and mules confused. But a mule is really a male donkey. We call them jacks.
Right.
And it's bred to a mare or a female horse.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
And that's how we get mules. So what kind of characteristics, you talked about your program, what do you look for in a jack and what do you look for in the mare?
All right, let's go with the jack.
You're trying to breed riding mules?
Riding mules. It's just like everything else. If you want a cutting horse, you look for cutting and reining and all that. So I wanted a good riding mule. So what I go back to Ben Tennyson, and he lined me out on the jack, told me what to look for. And then when it came to my mares, my wife helped me out find mares like that. And my main thing I want on a mare is a good disposition. Then I go for conformations. After that conformation, the thing I look for is just something that I can get around and stuff like that. I really don't care about color.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean a whole lot. So that's basically where I at on that.
Okay, that's good. You know, now, a lot of people may be surprised. A lot of us that are close to mules or had mules know this, but most mules are sterile, like 99% sterile. Why is that? Why can they not reproduce?
Well, your horse has 64 chromosomes and the donkey has 62. And then when the mule hits the ground, it's got 63. So basically, from some unknown reason, that 63 doesn't reproduce. But your molly mules will go ahead and cycle just like a mare will. And then your donkey, your jack, on your mule side, if you don't get him castrated, well, he'll still act like a stud horse.
Right, they'll still try to reproduce, but they just don't.
Right.
They have an odd number of chromosomes.
Right.
So they can't.
They want to do
match.
everything Mother Nature tells them to do.
There you go. Got it. Hey, folks, we're going to have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere with Tom Merritt, and we're going to talk more mules right here on Texas Agriculture Matters. Well, welcome back, neighbors. Welcome to Texas Agriculture Matters. I'm your host, Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller. Now, let's continue our talk with Tom Merritt. He's a Texas mule breeder. Now, Tom, tell us about the history of the mule and how it got to Texas.
Well, when the Spain came over and stuff, well, they were bringing the donkeys over to do a lot of work and stuff like that. And what they were doing, they were packing them, they were riding them, they were using them for wagon to carry freight or whatever. And also during that time, they started bringing horses over. And the humidity and everything in South Texas, they realized that they could cross that donkey and that mare, and they could have some mules, and they would be able to have a little more life to them, but cover more ground.
Right.
And that's kind of how they got started, and they used them for exploring and everything.
Oh, you know, the whole cotton industry in Texas was built on that. George Washington was one of the very first people to cross the donkeys with the horses and mules on his farm there in Mount Vernon. Now, the mule has a great military history.
Yes, sir.
Especially around World War I. They were used exclusively. We're sitting right in where the largest mule auction was in the world was held, the horse and mule barns here. You can still go across the street and see the mules are long gone.
Yeah.
But the buildings are still, American Paint Horse Association has their offices in one of the old mule barns.
Yes, sir.
Not only would the American military come here to buy their mules, but all our allies that were in the war effort with us, they would come here and buy mules. So tell us how those mules were utilized in the military.
Well, you're exactly right what you're talking about. There's a lot of mules that were in Texas, and people don't realize that. We had more mules in Texas than we had in Tennessee and Kentucky. And the main reason they used them in military work, because a lot of places they couldn't get the vehicles there. And they needed ammunition, they needed food, they needed wounded carried back out. All this other stuff that normally you think I can take with a vehicle, I can get it up there. Well, they couldn't, so they had to learn to do it with a mule and get them back out.
They'd pull in artillery with them.
Yes, sir.
I mean, just any and everything.
Yes, sir.
Of course, as time progressed, it became less and less desirable, and we got more mechanized and better equipment.
But you can go to Taliban. When we were over there, the vehicles couldn't get up in the rough mountains, and the helicopters they fly in, they get shot down. So they're also using them up until the recent times. And in fact, there's a base, Marine base in California, I think called Bridgeport, where they still train people to have a pack animals to where they can fight in areas that they can't get vehicles or helicopters.
They're still used today. So what, in your opinion, what are the characteristics that make a highly prized mule? What are you looking for?
Well,
what tops the market?
Well,
if I was going to go buy the best one, what am I looking for? I don't really know.
Know about the mare.
Okay.
Know about the mare. Try to find a mare that's got a good disposition. Then from that, go on confirmation. And that way, when you find that mare, and then hopefully that they're bred to a good jack well, the old timers used to tell me between 13 and 14 hands when I started looking for a jack, with a clean throat latch, small head, and pretty refined. And what I found is these foundation mares with a little bit of athletic ability bred into them, early breeding and stuff, make real good mamas.
Okay, well that's very, very good to know, very good to know. So last question. Tom, what do you think Texas agriculture matters?
Well, if you will, let's just take this area right here. Just in the Will Rogers Coliseum and all this over here that goes on, they generate over $300 million a year just in that activity. So now you've got Houston, San Antonio, Austin of equine activity going on all around, all the small ropings, everything going on. Well, that's a big boost to the agriculture because you've got hay, you've got feed, you've got all that going on. And you mentioned a while ago about hunting. A lot of people do a lot of hunting, and a lot of people are using mules to go hunting on.
Sure. I got some buddies that coon hunt on mules. Believe that or not.
Yes, sir.
Packing into the elk hunting.
Yes, sir.
Tom, it's been such a pleasure talking about mules with you today.
Sir.
Thanks for being on Texas Agriculture Matters.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, folks, we're going to take another look at one of our great Go Texan members. Stay tuned. For over 20 years, the Texas Department of Agriculture's Go Texan program has helped promote products made right here in the Lone Star State. From boots to salsa, Go Texan members make the best stuff on earth. Now, friends, let's take a look at one of these fine Texas businesses and why they are Go Texan proud.
Go Texan every day.
Polite Coffee is an endeavor to combine Texas hospitality with world-class quality coffee. The idea started in the end of 2013 when I was in my tent in Afghanistan. I was missing home, drinking really bad coffee, and wanted something that I could do when I got out that could impact the world, and coffee's grown globally. And I didn't really think at that time that there was a brand out there that resonated and connected with Texans, like a Whataburger or a Dr. Pepper or a Bluebell ice cream or an HEB, but for coffee. And that's kind of what I wanted to be. So that's how I got here to this point. I chose Bryan because I'd been accepted to Texas A&M. It's the only school I applied to. Family history made me want to come here. Ended up using my finance degree, got a banking job for a couple years. But as soon as I started the banking job, I started roasting. I bought a roaster. I just went full in with it. The roaster I have out in the roastery right now. Had never roasted a batch before, but I knew that I was going to be committed to being good and making it work. And so I went for it. I bought the biggest one I could afford, so I wouldn't have to go back and buy another one later. The coffee makes a good impact by the fact that we're paid normally 2 to 3.5, 4 times the commodity price of coffee. Like some of these coffees, this coffee right here is like $6 a pound green. That's a lot more than the commodity price of coffee. That's a lot more money in the farmer's pocket. And that's what I love about, that was what drew me to coffee, is that like it's this global product that we all consume around the entire world. And so we can impact everybody. So yeah, just be able to pay more for our coffee, and then it actually be a quality product. And so it's funny, like depending on who you talk to, some people think our coffee is expensive and some people think it's cheap. Because if you know the value, like the quality of it, you'll think it's a great deal. But if you just see it compared to your commodity price coffee, you're like, yeah, it's a lot more expensive. So I think that's something that I'm really proud of is be able to make a difference at origin. And how that makes a difference here is it helps people have a better life there. And so they're not trying to risk their lives to get here or to make a better life. And so that's what I love about coffee. Yeah, we have 19 different coffees from 7 different importers all over the globe. It was important for us to become a member of Go Texan because we wanted somebody to be able to pick up our product quickly and know that we're not just pandering to Texans, that we actually are Texan and that means something to us. You see it on all types of products, and so it's just one of those items, one of those things that you just it just makes sense immediately. Oh, hey, they're Texan. And so we wanted to just, as you get to know the brand, you'll know that, but we wanted somebody to be able to pick up the fact that we're actually Texans serving Texans immediately. I'm Steve Turner with Polite Coffee, and we are Go Texan proud.
You're Texan every day.
Well, neighbors, thank you for joining us for another episode of Texas Agriculture Matters. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Texas mules. Mules have played a long-time role in American history, from helping in the construction of the Panama Canal to assisting in the construction of the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Mules even played a large part in putting the first jet engine to the top of Pikes Peak, which eventually led to the creation of the United States Space Program. So the next time someone says, "You're stubborn as a mule," well, you might thank them, because while they might be hard-headed, they're incredibly smart. As always, I'd like to close by saying thanks to every Texas farmer and rancher who works from sunrise to sunset to help keep our rural heritage alive. Finally, here's today's cowboy logic. To get the full value of joy, you must have someone to divide it with. Thank you, and God bless. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters.